little tour of an area of Newcastle in Ouseburn, which is a little district just on the outskirts of the city. Now, you'll notice that it looks autumnal. Lots of leaves on the ground. Well, just the start of autumn. And that is because this was filmed back in September last year. Now, I had just been on Paula's book launch, and I was just on my way back to go and get the metro, and I just thought to myself, hey, why don't I record this? And it's been languishing on my GoPro ever since. I had to put a stabilizer effect on the video because it was actually very shaky. I'm not quite sure what that is. It's been there for many years. But yeah, it was quite jerky. So, Ouseburn. So this was, if you like, a cradle of the Industrial Revolution. This was the heart of the Industrial Revolution of Newcastle, and recent regeneration has transformed this district to become Newcastle's cultural quarter and one of the most vibrant, creative communities in the northeast. It is home to artists, musicians, designers, printmakers, microbreweries, and even some sheep and some animals. There's a little urban farm somewhere around here. It's a thriving community that attracts quite an eclectic crowd of people. And like I said, you can see the start of fall just happening. Kind of walking around this area makes you feel of Manchester with canals, etc. So very narrow walkways. You also notice there's quite a lot of street art. I mean, look at that. Lots of graffiti and street art. That just adds to the vibe of Ouseburn. It all kind of fits in because it's very funky and vibrant and quirky. So you get a lot of these hipster cafes and microbreweries. Microbreweries are huge in the United Kingdom at the moment. These are just little tiny places where they serve IPAs and craft beers. And yeah, quite contemporary, quite quirky. Nearby this area is the entrance to the Victoria Tunnel, which is an underground wagonway that was once used to transport coal to the quayside for transportation. It was later used as an air raid shelter during the Second World War. And these days, if you wanted to visit the Victoria Tunnel, you can don a hard hat and take a fascinating tour into the tunnels itself. So we are kind of approaching the quayside in a moment. And again, walking past these little establishments, these little coffee shops and bars, you just get these lovely aromas of coffee, and they're all really, really nice. And again, very dog friendly. A lot of people just bring their pooches, and you can just hang out. Lots of outdoor seating, lots of buskers and musicians. And it's just a really nice, vibrant place. Very, very modern and very relaxed. Quite bohemian. A lot of people on their mobile telephones. I often come here. It's a great meeting place. Just to soak up some sun and get a nice view of the quayside and the bridge. And there you go, we're just getting down toward the quayside itself, which is right on the River Tyne. And just walking along here gives you a spectacular view of 7 of the region's most famous bridges, including the iconic Tyne Bridge, which is just out of shot at the moment. And of course the ultra-modern Gateshead Millennium Bridge, which you will see just in a moment. So this was a Sunday afternoon, and it was still quite warm. It was on the cusp of just starting to cool down in the start of the winter, or the autumn, should I say. This looks to me to have been around 2 p.m. ish. And I'm now on the actual quayside itself. A lot of really expensive apartments there. And again, you get the sound of musicians and just a nice, chilled out vibe. So that's the Millennium Bridge just in front of you. That nice big white archway, and the bridge just beyond it is the Tyne Bridge. Now the Tyne Bridge is the sister of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So they were both constructed and created by steel merchants in the northeast of England. But the Sydney Harbour Bridge is probably about 4 times as big as ours, but they are pretty much identical in design. memories when I walk along here because there was many years ago I went on a tall ship. One of those big sailing vessels with the big white sails and the wooden ship. And I went out on a 4-day expedition, if you like, of the coastline. Had a fantastic experience, but this is where we docked, in this very spot. And I'd spent about 4 or 5 days on the ship. And in that time we were working in the mess hall. We did shifts on the bridge. You worked night shift, so everybody had to do a duty that revolved around a rotation, if you like. Cleaning duties. Everybody was at work and we would have to work together to hoist the sails and all of that great stuff. It was a fantastic experience. I think that must have been around 2017 or 18. It was during my hiatus on this channel anyway. Just on the left there, that big brick building in sight now, that is the Baltic Centre for Contemporary Art, which is an old flour mill, but is now a really vibrant museum. There's art exhibitions in there, and you could do a zip wire from the top of the building all the way over to the other side of the river, and I have done that zip wire. I've done that. I've gone across the river, and it was a great experience. I did it for charity, a long time ago, I think about 10, 11 years ago. And my good friend was married in the Baltic. So the Baltic is a venue for wedding receptions too, but my friend was actually married in there. It was a great day. Now just beside that you'll see that funny shaped building, looks like an armadillo almost. That is the Sage Gateshead, and it's a great venue for live music and performances. But just in that space in the middle of the Sage and the Baltic, there is going to be a brand new world-class arena and conference centre, but it won't be completed till 2025. And if you look closely, you can see that there is some construction going on there. There used to be a really big car park there, and it used to be so handy because I could just drive into the city and park on the outskirts and just walk over the bridge there. And I was in Newcastle. But since the car park has gone because of the construction of the new arena, it's just not convenient to drive to Newcastle now, so I often just get public transport. On a night time, it's spectacular to see this because it's all lit up. The bridge is all lit up in these really rainbow colours, these beautiful rainbow colours. But on a day like this, it's quite overcast and yeah, but it is beautiful on a night. And when a ship comes in, the bridge actually lifts up. So the pedestrian part actually lifts up so a ship can pass through. It's really interesting to see it actually in action. So that new place I mentioned that's being built, that's going to have something like 12,500 capacity arena with international grade conference style with 17 suites, art exhibition space, bars, restaurants, new walkways and a public space around the quayside. And that's the pedestrian bridge there that you can walk over. Yeah, a lot of people do jogging down this quayside as well, and it is actually the venue for the junior course of the annual Great North Run. So a lot of the kids actually run down this area on the junior part of the Great North Run. And there's the walkway over to the bridge if you wanted to go over to Gateshead, which is the town on the other side of the river. And nice view of the Baltic there. And you can see how the bridge is lifted by those suspensions. A lot of musicians. I really enjoy hearing the mishmash of different songs and singers and musicians and street performers. And the Sage, that building there. I've been in there a few times to see a few gigs. The last time I was there was to see a singer called John Grant. He's a singer-songwriter from Michigan, and he just does the most amazing songs. And I saw him it's about 2019, I think. So we are approaching the section because it is a Sunday. We're approaching the Quayside market, which has been going for decades and decades and decades. Another singer there. It's great how people just stand and listen. And it's great how just people come out for that Sunday afternoon walk, get some food, bring the kids, bring the dogs. So this Quayside market has an ever increasing number of stalls from local creators and traders, all selling gifts and souvenirs as well as tasty treats and street food. A great place to look around at the books as well, and street art and photographers. It's a great chance to get all this lovely local art and photography, as I say. And they sell all sorts of weird souvenirs. A lot of cheeses, candles, wines. Sip and sugar. Yeah, you could spend a good few hours just looking around the stalls. Lots of produce and yeah, you could see people walking past with the street food in boxes. Pulled pork. Yeah, so I was using a GoPro here, a Hero 5, which is quite old now. But the newer ones are quite fluid and got great great stability, but this one's still a little bit on the jerky side, so I had to put a image stabilizer on. I used to come here when I was a kid. My parents would drive us up the odd Sunday. And at that time, this was pre-internet, but I used to love looking through the record stalls and trying to find something that you were after. And it was always really exciting because you thought you might have a lucky day and find what it is that you were after. And back in the day, I used to buy computer games. This was like Commodore 64 era. Another view of the bridge and the sage, etc. And there is the Tyne Bridge. That is the main iconic bridge of Newcastle. Now just further up there used to be a ship that was moored on the Gateshead side from the mid-80s just up to about 2008, and it was called the Tuxedo Princess, which was a floating nightclub. So you could go on and dance until the early hours, but you always felt as if you were uneven because it was constantly moving with the tide. It was replaced for a while by its sister ship, the Tuxedo Royale. But it was just under the bridge there. I'm too young to remember really. I didn't really ever go to it. I think once I went as it was near the end, but it was rusty, it was old, and its days was numbered even when I'd gone. Yeah, quite busy there, isn't it? It would have been busier a good few hours ago, but I think the crowds are just starting to thin as it gets later in the afternoon. And again, a great place to bring the dog. Everybody seems to have a dog here, don't they? But Newcastle itself is a really lovely city. I'll have to do another tour of other areas. It's a very historic city too, but this is just the Quayside area by the river. So we're now kind of entering Sandhill, which is a street just near the riverfront here. And it's called Sandhill because it used to be literally the hill of a sand where the tide was out. And as you can see, some lovely historic Tudor style buildings there. There was a thriving market at Sandhill, but by the 16th century many prominent merchants owned property in Sandhill. However, in the 18th century the suburbs became more fashionable for richer merchants, and this area entered a period of slow decline until the regeneration of the Quayside area just in modern times. But there are many historic buildings here, including the Bessie Surtees house, which we just recently passed. Now, this area here, side cinema just to the left where we've just been, that's where I showed one of my movies. Do you remember years ago I made a movie called Fog Island? Well, I actually showed it at a very small cinema in this area. We had two showings Must have been 2012 Halloween time. But this is also a really nice part of town in the Crown Passada there, that pub just on the left. A really old Victorian style pub. There it is, one of my favourite places. It's very oldie worldy and very snug. And as you can see in Newcastle, there are lots and lots of souvenir shops, all to buy Newcastle themed souvenirs. And looking up Grey Street there to your right, that leads to a lot of restaurants, bars, theatres, cinemas, and Grey's Monument. I used to work in a cinema just at the top of there. A lovely job it was, just didn't pay that well, unfortunately. And this is one of the many souvenirs that you can buy. Lots of quirky things like maps and keyrings, etc. Just walking up this bank. Again, it's a very steep bank indeed. And this is leading up to, on the left hand side, it's leading up to the Black Gate. Now the Black Gate is part of Newcastle's castle, which is why it's called Newcastle. And the Black Gate is a fortified gatehouse added between 1247 and 1250 on the orders of King Henry III. Lots of historic artwork there, all relevant to the city of Newcastle. And there is the Black Gate, that is the gatehouse to the castle. And just up there is the Cathedral, Newcastle Cathedral, which was founded in 1091, during the same period as the nearby castle. The Norman church was destroyed by fire in 1216, and the current building was completed in 1350, so is mostly in the perpendicular style of the 14th century, and its tower is noted for being 15th century lantern style and was heavily restored in 1777, and the building was raised to a cathedral status in 1882 when it became known as the Cathedral Church of St. Nicholas. There's a bit of work going on, it's all cordoned off for some reason. They must be doing some kind of restoration or some work around that area. The traffic in Newcastle tends to be quite busy. So I'm heading towards the train station at this point to go home, and just waiting to get across. Again, a lot of work going on. Yeah, cones, and I'm digging up the sides of the road by the sounds of it. And there's quite a lot of homeless in Newcastle as well. A lot of people kind of sit in line in doorways, and yeah. A lot of cities and a lot of towns now have homeless. It seems to be an issue here in the United Kingdom. much for listening and watching. And I'm just about to jump on the train, so I will see you all very soon. A good night.